Recently, an announcement made by Hino Motors Manufacturing USA, a subsidiary of Toyota, brought alarming news to communities in the United States. The closure of its largest auto parts plant, located in Marion, Arkansas. With the promise of ceasing operations by the end of 2027, this decision sent shockwaves through the local market and, more broadly, through the automotive sector in the U.S. What initially appeared to be an economic restructuring, over time, reveals itself as a crisis that could deeply affect the lives of over 1,300 workers and their families, as well as trigger a series of consequences for the local economy and even the automotive industry across the country. The plant's closure is not just a number on paper. For Marion and surrounding towns, where thousands of people depend on this plant to sustain their families, it means a tremendous loss. The Marion plant is not only a major auto parts factory, it is the heart of work and survival for a large portion of the local population. With 1,300 jobs set to be eliminated, many workers on the production line, skilled technicians, and managers now face the fear of unemployment. For many, the plant represents the only stable source of income in an area where few other job options are available. It is important to note that, within the context of this plant, Hino Motors represents 70% of the company's workforce in the United States. This closure is not just the loss of a number of jobs, it is the loss of an economic pillar for the city. While local authorities have promised to do everything they can to help these workers find new opportunities, the reality is that the transition will be painful. Marion's economy is heavily dependent on the plant, meaning that, without it, local businesses, from small merchants to large service providers, will also suffer a direct impact. Families who rely on the factory job for financial security now face terrifying uncertainty. Moreover, the closure of such factories tends to create a domino effect. Services such as transportation, healthcare, food, and even local schools, which serve these workers, may face cuts due to the drop in demand. This creates a vicious cycle of local economic deterioration. Local authorities will face the challenge of attracting new investments and assisting in the retraining of the workforce. But the road to recovery will be long and, without a doubt, challenging. This closure, however, is not just a local issue. It reflects a larger trend within the automotive industry in the United States, which was already facing difficulties before the pandemic and continues to be affected by changes in the global market. Factory closures and job losses are clear signs of the struggles faced by automakers, especially when it comes to the financial viability of their operations. Hino Motors, for instance, reported an operating loss of $189 million at the Marion plant in the last fiscal year. This demonstrates that the plant had been struggling to maintain a profitable operation, even with the steady demand for components for Toyota's successful models, such as the Tundra and Sequoia. The financial difficulties at the plant indicate a shift in the landscape of automotive parts production in the United States, which in turn reflects the global challenges faced by the automotive industry. The rising operational costs and material shortages, exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, have resulted in a situation where production is unable to keep up with the demands of an increasingly demanding market. If other factories follow the same path as the Marion plant, we could see a wave of factory closures and mass layoffs across the industry. This would not only affect the automotive workforce, but also create additional pressure on supply chains that are already overloaded. This raises a concerning question. If the industry does not strategically adapt to these challenges, we may be on the brink of an economic crisis in the U.S. automotive sector. But the impact is not limited to workers and local economies. American consumers will also feel the consequences of the closure of the Marion plant. With the plant producing essential components for Toyota's popular models, such as the Tundra and Sequoia, the disruption of this production could cause serious supply issues. The shortage of parts could lead to delays in vehicle deliveries, a widespread inventory shortage at dealerships, and, consequently, higher vehicle prices. For consumers, this situation is a reflection of what many have already feared. The U.S. automotive industry, affected by a series of challenges, is about to face even more pressure. The lack of vehicle options due to parts shortages could lead to a scenario where, with demand outstripping supply, prices soar. Those who were planning to purchase a new vehicle soon may see their plans frustrated due to limited availability and higher costs. In a time when inflation is already squeezing American wallets, these changes could be an even harder blow for consumers. If the parts shortage for Toyota models spreads to other automakers, the price increase for cars could become a widespread problem. This would affect both new vehicle consumers and those looking for used cars, as the demand for vehicles would be greater, but the supply would not be able to keep up with it. Ultimately, Toyota and Hino Motors' decision to close the Marion, Arkansas plant is not an isolated event. The consequences of this closure will ripple out across several areas, affecting the economy nationwide, from small communities to major metropolitan areas. The loss of jobs, the potential rise in vehicle prices, and the challenges in parts supply are just the beginning of a cycle that could affect much more than the communities surrounding the Marion plant. While local authorities and leaders in the automotive industry are doing what they can to mitigate the effects of this change, it is clear that the U.S. automotive sector is at a crucial moment. To survive and thrive, automakers will need to adapt to a new landscape where production and parts supply must be optimized and sustainable. Without a strategic approach, we can expect more plants to close, more jobs to be lost, and eventually, consumers will feel the impact of this in their own pockets. This is a situation that demands swift action and adaptation. Affected communities will need to find ways to reinvent themselves and diversify their economies, while the automotive industry must reassess its production and supply strategies to ensure that the future of car production in the U.S. remains stable and efficient. Without a strategic and innovative approach, the effects of this closure could reverberate far beyond Marion, Arkansas, and affect everyone in ways we have yet to fully anticipate.